Hey, welcome to Sandy Creek Nature Center. We're gonna take you on a little virtual walk and show you a little bit about the ecosystem that's out here and a little bit about the history of the place.
Alright guys, our first stop here, we are in the Piedmont Prairie portion of Sandy Creek Nature Center. Now this habitat right here has dramatically increased in acreage in Georgia throughout history. It used to be very dominant, used to cover the entire state. But recently, we've just kind of started restoring them back again. Restoring these will help increase biodiversity in our area. They give a lot of room for some natural species, and we can see some pollinators come back as well.
All right, so this is as known as a Piedmont Prairie, and these were used by the Cherokee and Cree to hunt animals, and they would use the grasses in these lands to build huts. They would also use some of the medicinal herbs from here to treat wounds that they would get on hunting trips. They never actually built in the Piedmont Prairies because Piedmont Prairies are known for wildfires, and so most likely they would be in these woods around the prairies just to make sure that they would stay clear from the forest fires. And then worst comes to worst, after the fires would go, they would plant crops. So here at Sandy Creek Nature Center, we have one of the first revivals of the American chestnut hybrid. In 1904, the spores of the blight were carried by beetles to a bunch of the species along the East Coast. And pretty much these trees were all over in the most predominant species in America. But as of 1925, all the species were destroyed, and that just shows how fast this invasive species can spread. And so here at Sandy Creek, you see these cages all around us, and pretty much this is because they're trying to protect them as best as they can. Right now, since it's fall, the saplings don't look too good, but I can assure you in spring, maybe they'll grow a little bit and have some more leaves on them. These trees, one of the major things about them was that their nuts could resist the cold, and so during winters a lot of the animals that were in these forests would feed off the nuts, and that's how they would survive. When the blight happened, a lot of species, we saw population decline, and so really it was just terrible. Not only were these trees used by the animals, but they're also used by the Native Americans and everything that came before them. And so Native Americans used the trees for canoes and huts, and I know during the industrial period they were used for a lot of firewood, which kind of sucks, but as you can see, there would be around, I think they're around 150 feet tall, and their diameters were usually 20 inches, which is huge, and so they would have plenty of fuel for fires.
Alright, so this season, you can see a lot of these spiders around your neighborhoods. These are the Joro spiders. They were introduced in 2013 here in Georgia, and every year they've just been expanding their population size. They have these huge webs you can kind of see here that go across the trail. They're three-dimensional, and that's one way you can determine that they're different from your typical yellow garden spiders that you see year-round. One thing about these spiders is they are venomous, but it's nothing more than just a bug bite or like a bee sting. So be careful walking through, but if you get hurt, don't fear too much about it. They do eat some bugs that other species don't here, especially non-native species. They do eat the stink bug, which also came from Asia. So that's been nice, helping decrease their populations. But we do have some native birds who eat these spiders who keep their populations in check. They're kind of forming into the community here they have their prey, they have some predators, and they're kind of coexisting right now with the spiders around us. They don't seem to take away so much of their food.
So here we have some local flora that the Cherokee would have used, and this is called river cane. It's one of the native species of America. I think it's the only native species in America of cane, and this is known as Cherokee plastic because this was used in everything from light arrows to building structures. Now, one of the most fascinating things about river cane is that if you look here, these leaves are super sharp and they can cut, but The Native Americans were so well with this that they would weave the leaves into baskets and they would be able to carry water from the river without a drop spilling out. Now, although this is really, really nice, this is the perfect environment that the Native Americans would have had a village at, considering that there's plenty of river cane that grows by the North Oconee, but also the natives would create these wires, which are pretty much rock traps for fish. And what they would do is they would trap and try to move a school of fish into their wire, and they would pick them up with hands since it was so shallow, and pretty much carry them in the baskets, bring them back to the village, and they would have food for a couple weeks just from doing fishing.
All right, so the western border of Sandy Creek Nature Center is the North Oconee River we have right here. Now, the benefits of a river are countless. I mean, just think, we use water every single day of our lives. And what's great about this area, this is a wetland. So it kind of helps slow down the pace of the North Oconee and helps some sediment settle to the bottom and gives us some clean water that we can drink out of. Other great benefits to having this clean water is just the habitat it provides. You get some fish species and they use the river that we could also consume, but also just having healthy water lets everything around us grow to our enjoyment. So a lot of the area at Sandy Creek Nature Center is a mixed hardwood forest, and this is consistent with the state of Georgia in the southeast. You do see some pines off in the distance, but most of it are these hardwoods right here. We have some oaks. When you go a little bit toward this river, you get some beech. It's a very diverse community, and that's what makes these ecosystems so important. Due to that diversity, that makes them more resilient to drought and pest infections. But this also allows for other species to come in and introduce themselves. You do see a little bit of privet off in the distance. It's just like a short, woody species that's come from Asia, and it's starting to take over because it's shade tolerant, meaning that it can grow under all of these canopies without needing as much sun like pine trees would, and that's why you don't see as many of them. We also do see some other invasives. We have some kudzu growing far off in the distance, and they have been managing for that here in Sandy Creek. You can see this all throughout the southeast as well, as it just kind of comes in and swallows ecosystems. So it's important to try to make sure that these non-natives don't get introduced, and that way we can help keep these diverse ecosystems healthy for us to use.